You know that person who knows all your secrets? The one you trust more than yourself? For 25 years, that was Anya. They shared cheap wine, dreamed big, and knew the exact shade of blue in each other's eyes. But then the text started. Not hers, but her second phone, the one she claimed was for international clients. Maya never intended to look, but when it flashed, revealing a rapid-fire string of Russian characters, she couldn't stop myself. The message wasn't about photo shoots in Sicily. It contained a chilling word, Krasnaya. In that instant, her best friend vanished. She wasn't Anya, the quirky artist. She was an agent being called to an emergency extraction in Rome. What would you do if a single text message proved the person sleeping on your couch was lying about their entire identity? Before we dive into the gripping details of this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more thrilling stories. The silence in the diner was thick, broken only by the clinking of cutlery and the hiss of the espresso machine. Across the worn formica table, Anya smiled, her eyes crinkling at the corners in that familiar, comforting way. We'd been inseparable since kindergarten, two halves of a mismatched whole. I, the pragmatic architect, and she, the free-spirited, wildly creative photographer who seemed to know everything about everything. "I'm telling you, Maya," she said, stirring her iced coffee. "The lighting in Sicily is unparalleled. It's why I need to go back for the shoot." Sicily. It was always some exotic, remote location, a European photojournalism gig that whisked her away for weeks. She'd been doing this for the last 3 years, ever since she supposedly inherited an obscure sum of money and reinvented her career. Before that, she was just Anya, the girl with a chipped paint job on her little Honda Civic and a mountain of student debt. "Sicily sounds amazing," I replied, forcing enthusiasm. But a cold knot was tightening in my stomach. Something had been off since she returned from her last assignment in Lisbon. A subtle shift in her mannerisms, an almost clinical detachment in her voice when she talked about her family, who she claimed were now happily living in rural Oregon. The truth arrived not in a flash of lightning, but in the low, obnoxious chime of her second phone, the one she kept hidden in her camera bag and insisted was only for international clients. Anya had gone to the restroom. I was tidying up our napkins, trying to shove down the anxiety, when the screen of the second phone flashed with a new, unlocked text message. I knew I shouldn't look. It was a betrayal of the deepest trust. But my hand moved as if guided by an external force. I picked it up, my heart hammering against my ribs. The message wasn't in English. It was a rapid-fire string of characters in a language I recognized immediately from a college minor I'd dropped years ago, Russian. From Igor, encrypted. Status change. Contact in Lisbon compromised. New extraction protocol. Rome, 0400 Hs. The package must be secured. You are Krasnaya, not Anya. My vision tunneled. Krasnaya. The Russian word for red. I dropped the phone back into the camera bag with a sickening thud, my hands shaking violently. My best friend of 25 years, the girl who knew my deepest fears and the exact recipe for my mother's lasagna, was not a struggling photographer named Anya Petrova. She was Krasnaya, a code name, an agent, a spy. When Anya returned, her face was serene, but I saw her eyes flick instinctively to the camera bag. "Everything okay, Maya?" she asked, her voice light. I looked at her, really looked at her. The natural highlights in her hair were too perfect. The subtle scar above her left eyebrow, a childhood fall she always claimed, looked suspiciously like a precision cut. Even the faint, exotic scent she wore wasn't perfume. It was something metallic and faintly chemical. "I found your other phone," I whispered, not daring to raise my voice. The waitress was refilling my water glass. Anya froze. Her smile vanished, replaced by an expression of sheer, professional ice that didn't belong on my friend's face. "Don't be ridiculous, Maya. I only have one," she replied, her voice dangerously even. "Igor says otherwise," I pressed, leaning in. "He says your extraction is set for Rome, 0400 hours. And he says your name isn't Anya. It's Krasnaya." For a timeless moment, the old Anya and the new Krasnaya battled in her eyes. The Anya I loved looked terrified. Krasnaya looked calculating, dangerous, and already 3 steps ahead of me. "You shouldn't have seen that," she said, her voice dropping to a low, guttural register I'd never heard before. She reached across the table, not for comfort, but to grab my wrist with an iron grip that left me breathless. She wasn't asking, she was warning. All those trips, they were missions. The inheritance was funding. Your family in Oregon. I trailed off, the realization hitting like a physical blow. "They don't exist, do they?" Her grip loosened. A flicker of genuine sadness crossed the ice. "You were my anchor, Maya. The one part of my life that was real. But I can't let you jeopardize this. This is bigger than me. Bigger than us." She stood up abruptly, dropping a thick wad of cash onto the table, enough to cover our bill a dozen times over. "Forget this lunch. Forget this conversation. Forget Krasnaya," she ordered, her voice firm. "If you ever try to contact Anya Petrova again, you will be putting yourself in danger I cannot protect you from." She walked away, not running, but moving with a practiced, military efficiency. I watched her sleek black jacket disappear through the diner doors, melding into the anonymous crowd. She was gone. The only proof she had ever existed, besides the crater in my heart, was the single, chilling text message that had just obliterated my reality. The police were no help. Anya Petrova had outstanding paperwork for an international passport, but beyond that, the trail went cold. Her apartment was empty, scrubbed clean of personal effects. Months later, I was watching a breaking news segment about a political upheaval in Eastern Europe. The screen showed a brief, grainy photo of a woman in custody, a high-level operative involved in destabilizing a region. The woman in the photo had dark hair, high cheekbones, and a cold, defiant glare. The name below the photo was not Anya Petrova. It was something complicated and Slavic, but I recognized the eyes. They were Anya's. And I noticed something else, a faint, almost invisible scar, just above her left eyebrow. I looked at the burner phone I now kept locked in a safe deposit box. The text message was still there, a cruel monument to a friendship that was always a lie. Status change. Contact in Lisbon compromised. New extraction protocol. Rome, 0400HS. The package must be secured. You are Krasnaya, not Anya. She won't risk her life going to the authorities immediately, but she won't let the woman who betrayed her get away with it. Maya keeps the phone, but instead of taking it to the police, she quietly begins using her architectural background, which involves precision, research, and dealing with complex, compartmentalized information, to reverse engineer Krasnaya's missions. She starts with the name, Krasnaya. She searches for its meaning in slang, in historical context, and then cross-references all of this with political flashpoints in Rome and Lisbon from that time frame, turning the friendship betrayal into a high-stakes investigation. She is no longer just Maya, she is an amateur intelligence analyst, driven by 25 years of betrayal. Maya begins by analyzing the text, treating it like a foreign intelligence brief rather than a casual message. The code names. Krasnaya read this as a classic intelligence designation, often indicating the highest priority or a specific cell, e.g., red cell. The name itself suggests danger and political affiliation. Igor, encrypted, likely a handler or supervisor, the direct link to the organization. The text is specifically marked encrypted, confirming this is an internal, secure channel. The timeline and locations. Lisbon compromised. This means Krasnaya's previous mission or identity in Lisbon failed, necessitating an immediate exit. Rome, 0400 HRS. This was the initial extraction point. Maya cross-references this date, from the phone's timestamp, with news archives. She looks for anything unusual in Rome that day: closed airspace, sudden police activity, or political arrests. Sicily. Anya had mentioned Sicily just before the text arrived. Maya theorizes that Sicily was not the mission but the staging area, the safe harbor where Krasnaya waited after the Lisbon failure before moving to the Rome extraction. The objective. The package must be secured. This is the most vital piece of information. The package is the object of the mission. Is it a person, a document, a technological device, or simply money? World Map, the architect's map. Using her skills in complex project management and spatial analysis, Maya creates a mission flow diagram. Lisbon, failure/compromise. Start of new crisis. Sicily, staging/holding. The temporary safe zone. Rome, extraction attempt. The pre-scheduled escape. Current, high-value target area. The place where Krasnaya is now likely operating, based on the grainy news photo of her being captured or detained. Maya focuses on the news photo. The woman who looks like Anya/Krasnaya was linked to an upheaval in Eastern Europe. The text message timeline and the news photo timeline are now separated by several months. This means Krasnaya completed the Rome extraction, secured the package, and then executed the major mission in Eastern Europe. Maya digs into the political situation in the specific Eastern European nation linked to Krasnaya's arrest. She focuses on the period after the Rome text message. She discovers a highly publicized scandal involving a Russian scientist who had been secretly developing an advanced, miniaturized data encryption hardware, a technology capable of bypassing nearly all Western digital defenses. The scientist, Dr. Viktor Volkov, was rumored to have suddenly disappeared while attending a conference in Rome, only days after the date on the text message. The realization hits Maya with devastating clarity. The package was Dr. Viktor Volkov. Krasnaya's mission was to extract a high-value asset, Volkov, from the West, Rome, and deliver him back east to facilitate the political upheaval. The subsequent news report about Krasnaya's arrest confirms the mission's success and then her eventual capture. Maya now possesses something far more valuable than a burner phone: irrefutable evidence of a successful state-sponsored kidnapping or extraction that compromised European security. She has the direct timeline, the code name, and the critical link between the extraction, Rome, and the outcome, Eastern Europe. She knows she cannot go to the police. She needs to contact an agency that deals with high-level defections and espionage. An agency that is already invested in the Volkov case. Maya meticulously compiles her data: the photo of Anya, the diner location, the Russian text, the timestamp, and the clear link to Dr. Volkov's disappearance from Rome. She packages the truth not as an emotional story of betrayal, but as a highly sensitive intelligence report. Her final move is the riskiest. She finds the email address for a known, reputable investigative reporter who specializes in international security at a major Western newspaper, someone who has the contacts and the journalistic shield to handle this information. She types a single, encrypted email. Subject: evidence regarding Krasnaya and the Volkov extraction. I have the text message that proves the identity of the operative responsible for the disappearance of Dr. Viktor Volkov from Rome. The operative's name is not Anya Petrova. Her code name is Krasnaya. I was her best friend. Maya hit the send button on the encrypted email. There was no going back. She had dropped a match into a political tinderbox, and the blast radius included her. The investigative journalist, Elias Vance, was initially skeptical. His inbox was a graveyard of conspiracy theories. But Maya's email was different. It contained specific compartmentalized information: the Russian text, the code name, the precise connection to the highly sensitive disappearance of Dr. Viktor Volkov that a casual fantasist couldn't invent. Elias called Maya using an untraceable satellite phone, meeting her hours later in a secure, neutral location, a deserted museum cafe late at night. You understand the gravity of what you're alleging? Vance asked, his voice low and serious. He specialized in exposing intelligence failures. He knew the cost of being wrong. Maya presented the evidence: the archived news reports, the timeline connecting Rome to the Eastern European crisis, and the transcription of the burner phone message. She wasn't emotional. She was a witness presenting facts. Vance was convinced. This wasn't just a story, it was a security breach, a major intelligence coup by a hostile state, and the key was locked in the consciousness of a disillusioned architect. I need the phone, Maya, Vance said. The metadata, the carrier pigeon trail, it's all in there. I can't, Maya whispered. It's the only bargaining chip I have. I give you the information, you get the story, and then I disappear. If they know I talk to you, I'm dead. They reached a compromise. Maya would provide the phone's contents through a secure link, and Vance would only publish the story once Maya was safely in motion, erasing her identity and relocating far outside the network of Krasnaya's known operations. Elias Vance published his exclusive, a front-page exposé titled, "The Shadow War, Code Name Krasnaya, Linked to Kidnapping of Volkov, Fueling Eastern European Crisis." The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. Governments were forced to admit failures, intelligence chiefs resigned, and the focus of the international community shifted squarely onto the organization Krasnaya served. In a high-security prison in the east, Krasnaya, the woman who had been Anya, received a visit from her handlers. They didn't care about the mission's success anymore. They cared about the leak. "You had a loose end," the handler stated, his voice devoid of emotion. "An architect." Maya. Krasnaya didn't flinch. She had anticipated this. She saw one text. She was given a warning. She couldn't have put this together. Not unless she had help. The handler produced the newspaper. She didn't need help, Krasnaya. She only needed the truth. And she used it to unravel years of work. A cold, terrifying realization dawned on Krasnaya. Maya hadn't acted out of petty revenge. She had acted with the precision of a master strategist, using her enemy's own information against her. It was a brutal, genius move that only the best friend who knew her darkest secrets could execute. "Maya," Krasnaya whispered, a strange mixture of admiration and fatal fury in her eyes. She was the sleeper agent all along. While the world was reeling from the newspaper headlines, Maya was executing the plan she had designed, Operation Ghost. She liquidated her assets, transferred funds through multiple untraceable shell accounts, and secured a new identity, fabricated by Vance's most trusted sources. She flew to an island nation with complex extradition laws and disappeared into the anonymity of the crowd. Her old life was a void. Her career, her apartment, her city, gone. The loss was profound, but the crushing burden of the secret and the fear of the betrayal was finally lifted. She had chosen justice over silence and survival over sentimentality. 6 months later, Maya was sitting on a remote, sun-drenched veranda, watching the tide. A nondescript envelope arrived via a complex chain of international couriers, postmarked from the Eastern European country where Krasnaya was imprisoned. Inside was a single sheet of expensive, heavy paper, containing only 3 lines, written in Anya's familiar, elegant script. "I thought I knew the difference between real and fake. You were the one thing I failed to secure. Tell me how you did it." Maya stared at the note. It wasn't a threat, it was a question from one brilliant mind to another, separated by the unbridgeable gulf of espionage and betrayal. It was the only closure she would ever get. Maya took a deep breath, crumbled the note, and watched the pieces flutter into the ocean. She had already answered the question. She did it by believing the text message that proved her best friend was lying about her identity.